Hey, good morning and welcome. Patriot Radio News Hour. I'm Joe Jaquint, and welcome to Tuesday. I am back. I was off yesterday. My youngest son was actually visiting the school that he just committed to. He is officially committed to play football for the University of San Diego. Super proud of him, and we were told we had to go to camp, as part of the whole thing. And it's so funny with all that's going on with the COVID. You couldn't even see the coaches. So we were FaceTiming them as we were walking around campus. Then we drove back home to Phoenix. But nonetheless, he is relieved to have that done with, and we're happy for him. And that was why I was gone. But I'm back today, and just in the nick of time. Wow, what a massive, massive sell-off today. We'll tell you all about it, but before I do, I am joined with the Professor Glenn Biddle, who is the guy that I go to when I can't do shows. Glenn, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, Joe. Congratulations to your son. That's huge. You got two boys, made it to the big time. That's great.
Yeah, so it's something where obviously with the COVID that was out and about there, it changed all of the recruiting for all of the kids. My older son, his school is not playing football. I saw over the weekend that the Big Ten said they were going to cancel the season, and then everybody freaked out, and now they're saying, well, maybe we're not canceling the season, so they're not sure if they're canceling it or not. High school sports is really, really up in the air. A lot of states have already canceled it. Arizona's still saying we're going to play, but what happens is every time we get close, they move the goal. They move the goal line. So now we were supposed to start. The first game was supposed to be September 11th. Now it's September 30th. We'll just have to see if that happens, right? So as we get a little closer, I know Arizona, the cases have been going down here in Arizona. I just don't know what the number is. What is the number for you to make a decision as to whether or not you're going to play or not play? At what number of cases is it going to be allowed for these kids to play? And I think, Glenn, that's the big question right now. I don't know what that number is.
Yeah, they had the president of the University of Arizona on Squawk Box this morning talking to him about, what do you do? He's also a heart surgeon, so, he's a doctor, so that's a great person to have there as far as determining health, which I think is a good thing. And he's saying they'll go into lockdown if they have to. I don't think any of these colleges are taking any chances. I think from a liability standpoint, they're scared to death. And all it takes is 2 or 3 schools in any different conference, and that ruins the whole season for everybody. So I think that's what you're going to see, either reduce games or no games at all. And didn't the Pac-10 say something about maybe canceling?
The Pac-10 hasn't made an official announcement, but they are threatening. They're leaning towards possibly canceling. But the same thing happened as soon as the Pac-10, which has 12 schools in it. So why is it called the Pac-10? Is for anyone to guess. But as soon as they kind of were saying, "Hey, I don't think we're going to play," people freaked out. For the top level, it's big money. The lower tiers, they've already canceled. So my older son plays for a Division III school. They've canceled. They're done. They're not playing schools all online for the first semester. My younger son, who just committed to San Diego. Now San Diego, they're a 1AA school, so they're a very good 1AA school. They're done. They've already said they're like the Ivies. They've all said, "Hey, we're not playing Division twos." I don't know as much about the Division twos or not. Even in the Division ones, if it's not a Power Five, a lot of the non-Power Fives have already said, hey, we're not going to play. It's just really the Power Fives. And those are the ones, they make hundreds of millions of dollars by playing football. And for a lot of these schools, the football program pays for all the other programs. It supports it. I'll say this. Nick Saban from the coach at Alabama, he brought up a good point. He says, here's the one thing I know. And a college football team, and I don't care if it's Division III or Division I, has roughly around 100 players on it. When you throw in all the walk-ons, 100 players, not counting coaches. And he said, hey, listen, my kids are safer here at Alabama than they are at home doing God knows what. And I thought that was a pretty good argument.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I know that LSU, Ed Ogeron, he is all for. I can't see the SEC canceling. I just can't see that at all. And I also think I read where the ACC says they're still on. So for now, at least.
Yeah, so, I think the SEC and the ACC are trying to let it be known. And I know Nebraska, who's part of the Big Ten, who also has more than 10 schools in it, by the way. And the Big Ten was thinking of, they were the ones that were going to cancel, and then everyone freaked out. Now they said, well, we're going to wait a while. Nebraska said, go ahead and cancel. We're still playing. We'll leave the Big Ten if that means we get to play football. So it's interesting. That's why I was gone yesterday. When we get back, I promise we'll focus on what we do best. Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be back right after the break. 800-951-0592. So on Friday, we had a pullback. Gold had hit $2,100 in the early hours of the morning. Silver hit $30 to the ounce. And then by the end of Friday, gold had pulled back. Silver had pulled back. Now, actually, silver it pulled back a little bit. Not like gold. And I said to you on Friday, listen, we're going to have to wait and see how Monday goes to see if this is a quick one or if we're going to have a forming of a bottom. We need a new higher low in gold. We've been waiting for a pullback. Is this finally it? Yesterday, gold and silver opened up with a bang. I mean, they were up $20, $30. I'm like, oh, okay, well, looks like we're not going to get the pullback yet. Looks like we're going to keep going. But it fizzled out, and by the end of the day, gold was only up a few dollars. Silver was still in the $29 plus range. And then this morning, the big banks hammered the holy heck out of it. Gold was down almost $100 today. Right now, it's down 80 at 1944. But it was down at the low about $100. And again, it came right in the last support level we had. Well, the first one. So you got to remember, we went through all-time highs, and there's the charts. There's nothing out there. So the computers don't necessarily know what to do. Now, of course, we know that gold's been rally. And every time there was a pullback, maybe the pullbacks lasted like hours, not days, hours. So this morning, very confident in this. One of the big banks, and maybe more than one, made sure there was a pullback and went short. I'm sure it's probably a $2, $3, $4 billion short position to get what the effect that they wanted. So when we first broke 1900, the first stopping point was right in that night, depending on the contract. The guys on TV are using the December contract. Of course, we talk about the spot price here. In that 1935 to 1942 range. That was the first time gold broke 1900, ran up, let's just call it 1940, and then had one of those pullbacks that lasted a few hours. And by the end of the day, gold went back down to like 1920, and by the end of the day, it was back to 1940 again. So that is where gold found support today. So it went all the way back down because there was nothing there, right? So the computers just kept selling. And so it looks like today. Now, is this the bottom? Don't know that, right? If it was me, I would like us to retest the 1900. But if we don't, 1940, 1900, it's about the same thing. So this could be the bottom here at this 1940 level. And we'll just have to wait and see how it plays out over the next few days. But what's funny is the dollar's actually down today, and rightfully so. The president over the weekend, Glenn, made a bunch of executive orders. We got to talk about that. But what do you think? You think we've got a bottom here in gold, or do you think we got a little more ways to go?
It's hard to say how hard the big banks want to hammer it, I would think. Definitely the president played his hand over the weekend, and we talked a bit about that yesterday with the 4 executive orders. And, absence of any real leadership in Washington in the House and the Senate, I think the president was right in doing what he did. Something had to be done.
We do know now. I don't know, and I wasn't.
It's the beach ball popping up, Joe. They can't hold gold down forever. It's going to keep going. There's nothing they can do.
Absolutely.
Their money is
I
fake.
think
we
need higher highs and higher lows, and that's where gold's been in this trend. And really, people are talking about, hey, it's the start of the next bull market. Gold's been doing this for the last several years now, where we're getting higher highs and higher lows. We're going to get a higher low. The question is that higher low going to be 1940, or is that higher low going to be 1900? We're probably splitting hairs. But either way, we're going to get a higher low. And then again, as I said, gold doesn't take out all-time highs to go up a couple $100. That's not what's happening. But talking about the executive orders, I know that Wall Street is, very excited. Again, up another 260 points today. Just defies any real logic. But that's okay. Listen, this is what happens when you get money printing at the scope we're getting. All of those executive orders really, when you read them, in other words, don't read the headline, read the orders. Don't have a lot of teeth to it. The eviction order doesn't stop any evictions. Just doesn't. If you have a Fannie or a Freddie, you're okay. Everybody else, you're not. Let's talk about the payroll deferment. This is a big thing about this legislation. I don't know if any businesses are actually going to do it. It's supposed to start September 1st. The thing about it is, right now, it's only a deferment. In other words, the way the executive order was written, the president wants you to pay it back later, which would be, think about it. And only the people, you got to make less than $100,000 to get it. And then if you qualify for it, right now, it's written that you have to pay it back later. So, again, not a lot of teeth to it. And I don't know how many businesses will do it or not. The extra $400, that's definitely not happening. There's actually some laws that need to be addressed, number one. Number two, the states have to agree to pay $100 of the $400, which none of the states have any money to pay anyway. And again, the amount of time it would take because of how they did it. Believe it or not, it takes much longer legally for the states to do it through an executive order. What the president was hoping to accomplish was forcing the Democrats to make a deal. That's really what he wanted in all of this. He was upset, and rightfully so. Like Glenn said, listen, the Republicans, hey, it was the old, we want $1 trillion, the Democrats want $3 trillion. Let's just agree at $2 trillion, right? That's what the Republicans were going for. The Democrats were like, nah, we're not agreeing. We want $3 trillion. Too bad we're not doing anything. So this is trying to force the Democrats to come back, and believe it or not, it'll be better for everybody that's not working. If they come back and get a deal done, you'll actually get your money sooner. Anybody that's unemployed right now, you are not getting $400 in your check next week. You're not getting $400 in your check the week after, or the week after that, or the week after that, or the week after that. It's not happening. And then the Social Security part, that's an interesting one. It would be a brilliant move if the president wants to have more money in people's pockets. That's a great way to do it. You know, right now, if you're an employee, 6.2% of your pay is withheld for Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. I mean, having an extra 6.2% of your money, I mean, that's a lot, right, Glenn? I mean, that helps. The problem is all you're going to do is make that trust fund run out a whole lot sooner. But I told you, it's coming no matter what. But irregardless, and I know, Glenn, you guys spent time on it yesterday, this was nothing more than a made-for-TV event by the president. I salute the move. I think the move was brilliant. He's trying to get the Democrats to come to an agreement that doesn't cost $3 trillion, Glenn.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is, if you look at what Mitch McConnell said about the Democrats, is that they want a slush fund to bail out these failed states, which is, Illinois, California, New Jersey, New York. That's what they want. And they haven't spent a lot of the money that they got in the first couple bailouts, So they're just trying to create a slush fund to just keep padding the system. And we talked about this last week, Joe. I think you said, obviously they want to bail out pensions. They want to bail out, and that whole thing with the state and local tax, how you can't write that off anymore. That's just brutal. That's so brutal on those blue states as far as governments go. It actually exposes how high tax they actually are when you can't write it off anymore. And that's why people are voting with their feet and are leaving. And the other interesting thing is now when people are leaving, and they work in a different state, but their business is headquartered back in the big blue state. Now they have big fights between these governors on who's going to get tax money on the income, which is really interesting. I know New Hampshire and New York and Massachusetts are having a big battle right now about that.
Well, I'm going to point out something that I think a lot of people, and again, you don't hear about it on the mainstream media, because it's not Apple or Netflix or Microsoft, right? It's not a pharmaceutical company. And, like Boeing and Caterpillar are leading the market higher. Give me a break. Boeing can't even fly a plane right now, right? Caterpillar
I saw this
just
morning
reported. Go ahead, Glenn.
Yeah, Boeing had more cancellations than orders this last month.
This is the second month in a row now where they've had more cancellations than orders. And air travel. So they tried to make a big deal. Listen, I got to bring this up because they lie to you. Listen, this is why we're so popular. They tried to tell you, airline travel's coming back. We had over 800,000 people on a plane on Sunday. Right? They're making this great big deal. Believe it or not, the percentage of people flying in an airplane is the exact same as it was 6 weeks ago. It hasn't gone higher at all, but they said it ad infinitum. I heard it all day long about it's the first time we were over 800,000. You got to remember the end of August, right? Especially like Arizona. Normally this would be the week the kids go back to school. So you got that. This was kind of like the last vacation this week and next week and the week after, depending on what part of the country you're from. Do you know, they said, 800,000 people flew on a plane, according to the TSA. Do you know what it was same week and same Sunday last year? It was 2.6.
Probably 70% higher.
2.6 million. And they've been tracking right around from July 1st through August, so far in August. They've been tracking right around 67% down, and it hasn't changed. It hasn't moved more than 1% in either direction, up or down from that number. And it's just a misnomer, but they say it because, oh, look at Boeing stock's running because some guy, and give the guy credit, right? He realized, hey, we hit over 800,000, but if you went back, August always, especially the first 3 weekends in August, are the biggest travel days of the summer. So usually on that, the Sunday numbers for the next 3 weeks are going to be bigger because everyone wanted that last vacation or they needed to fly home. They were on the uber rich, they're on vacation all summer long, right? They got to fly back home because their kids finally got to go to school. So, and of course, what also happens right now? Oh, that's right. The college kids fly back to school. Now, not all the schools are open. But those Power 5 schools, ASU, U of A, they're open. Kids had to fly in. School starts here. So, again, not quite the truth. Kind of the truth, but just not the whole truth. So help me God. Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be back. 800-951-0592, Patriot Radio News Hour. So I'm sad to say, the executive orders, well, cool. I mean, it was cool, right? I mean, made for great headlines. Not really what it seemed. Unfortunately, because of some legal issues, the $400 isn't happening. It would take, my guess would be, let's just say the Democrats don't play ball. It'll probably take a couple of months before that would even happen. And it would only happen in states that agreed to pay 100 of the 400. The Social Security deferment is supposed to start September 1st. And again, the way it's written, companies can do it or not do it. Because the whole deferment part, hey, pay it back later part, nobody likes that, right? Especially if you're a guy if you're making, $15 an hour. And then you get a deferment for 4 months, and then all of a sudden in January they say, hey, you got to start paying it back. I mean, that'd be devastating. Now, the theory is that Congress later would pass legislation waiving the deferment. But, again, look at what's happened right now. They can't even come together now. You got 30 million people, and really 32 million people that are getting whacked on the head this week, and nobody cares. Right? They all want a grandstand for TV. And listen, the president's just as guilty because he grandstanded. It's not what it seemed. But I hope it worked. I like the thought. Listen, we're waiting, and the Republicans are saying, listen, we're willing to go above $1 trillion. But so far, the Democrats, they won't move. Like Glenn said, they want to bail out these states. And I don't know what to do. Let's take New York City, okay? I think a lot of people would tell you, hey, that's an important city. Right? Obviously, it's an important city. 83% of eateries, and it didn't matter, big, little, chain, non-chain, either paid no rent at all or paid some rent. And this is a July number. 37% paid no rent. 37% paid some rent. 17% paid all of the rent. And another, almost 9% said, hey, we're not sure. Listen, if you're not sure, you didn't pay. Right? You know if you paid the rent or not. So when you look at it, you're thinking, hey, we're talking about, all told, right, 17% of eateries are paying all of the rent. What happens to the other 83%, especially the one, you got 37% that are paying nothing? They don't have any money to pay. And yet stocks are at all-time highs, right? And of course, they're sitting there trying to get us to believe that things are wonderful out there. And they talk about, oh, look at the earnings. We're so much better than expected. Were they? The S&P 500. Okay, so this is the S&P 500 is our 500, our 500 best companies, right? This is a pretty good picture of most of, and let's face it, most of them really are global companies. But a pretty good picture. You take all 500 stocks of the S&P. Do you know that 445 of those companies, which represents 88% of the S&P 500, of these companies reporting, only the very small few, I'll call them the FANG type stocks, your Facebooks, your Amazons, your Apples, your Netflix, your Googles, if you throw those out, by the way, those companies, their revenues were only up 2%. That's it. That was what their big earnings growth was for the S&P 500. Those few stocks, and think about these stocks that, they're up 40, 50% on 2% earnings growth. The other stocks that aren't them, the other, 450 some odd, earnings per share fell 34%. So, Glenn, how does that work when you have 88% of the companies struggling? You think about it, I look at New York, 83% of the companies either couldn't pay any rent at all or only can make a partial rent payment. That kind of fits. That same similar number, 80-some% of the S&P 500 was down, had earnings growth of negative 34%. How are we sitting here at these levels and people are sitting there saying, oh, it's wonderful out there? How does that work?
It works because people are ignorant and not stupid. They're ignorant of what's going on, Joe, because they're too busy watching cardboard cutout fake baseball and fake basketball, and the only one I'm watching now is hockey because they actually stand for the flag. The other thing, Joe, is all these malls that are shuttering and this big anchor stores now are going to become Amazon fulfillment centers. What's that tell you about the economy? We knew that malls were dinosaurs and were going the way of the dodo anyway, but here it's just more destruction. And yes, we do need there's creative destruction, I guess you call it, in the economic world. But Southwest, they're offering buyouts to 9,000 employees, 20% of their workforce. What company that's in good shape does that? You don't do it. And here's what will happen: they'll buy out those workers, and their stock will go up because they'll be more profitable. And that's how bad this. The world's upside down, Joe. It is completely.
Well, they'll
upside
lose
down.
less money. The airlines aren't profitable, but they'll lose less money. How about the Russell 2000? Now, nobody talks about the Russell 2000. I don't talk about it. I can't even really tell you what stocks are in the Russell 2000. These are your small stocks, right? The stocks that you don't get a lot of press on the idiot box. Earnings for these companies are down 97%. 97%. In other words, if they made $1 a share last year, that company's making 3 cents. That's it. And this is kind of the thing that we're up against. And when you're seeing the president saying, hey, I'm willing to bankrupt Social Security to save this economy. Of course, Social Security is already bankrupt, but you know what I'm driving at. I'm willing to do it. How bad is it really? And that's the thing that I think has been why gold's been running, why Wall Street's running. And again, Eric was the one, he told you from the get-go, listen, we're going to have higher, stock market's going higher, gold and silver are going higher because the printing presses won't stop running. Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be back after the break. 800-951-0592. I just had a terrible thought. So I'm watching, a headline broke about mortgages, and it's more of the same. But it got me thinking, why should anybody pay anything? What if we just all stop paying? If 83% of eateries in New York aren't paying, why would the other 17% pay? And now CoreLogic says a huge spike in people not paying their mortgage. So it's gotten worse, not better. So they actually have stages of delinquency. Okay, so stages of delinquencies. The first stage, and I like how they labeled the first stage. It's early stage delinquencies, right? Okay, that makes sense, right? Hey, early stage, right? What's the earliest stage of delinquency you could be in? Well, you got to miss at least one payment. So 30 to 59 days. 30 to 59 days late, which is still only 1 month, right? You missed one payment, getting ready to miss the second, haven't missed the second yet. Was up 3% from the 1.7% recorded in May. This was just May. And May, remember, all the forbearances, now all of a sudden, here we are in August, and we've had a huge increase. This just tells you this jobs picture not getting better. And I expect September's numbers to be cataclysmic if they don't have any money. When you think about this, we're giving people an extra $600 a month. Or a week. I'm sorry, not a week. Now, of course, some of these people have, their states, they aren't very good and hadn't gotten their money and all this and that, but a huge increase. That's stage one. Adverse delinquencies. Okay, now it's getting a little more serious. 60 to 89 days. So now you've missed two payments. 2.8% up from the May number. Serious delinquencies. Okay, you've missed 90 days or more. In other words, you've missed 3 or more payments. Now, that one's up 1.5% from May. And CoreLogic is now saying that 7.3% of all mortgages were 30 days or more past due. And this was a number in May, and now that number keeps jumping. And by the way, this is the highest level of what I'll call, what are they calling it? Early stage delinquencies since the housing crisis. And so now, I keep asking, how does this all work? How much money are we going to spend? I mean, Glenn, if you think about it, how long until nobody's paying rent? How long until only the idiots are paying their mortgages, right? How many of you out there paid your mortgage during the housing crash and regretted it, right? I mean, I know I did, right? I did. I'm like, man, I shouldn't have paid. And I was one of those guys. I had a first and a second by 2 different banks. I could have lived there for 3-4 years without getting hit. But, of course, listen, I honor my debts, and a lot of us out there, we do. We honor our debts. I signed the contract. I'm going to pay for it. But these are numbers. When I sit there and tell you that 7.3% of people aren't paying their mortgage, and by the way, you think about the housing crisis that led to the financial crisis, that was less than 5% of people didn't pay their mortgage. So this number is actually higher. So how does this math work? And then you sit there and you start thinking about why it is the president did what he did, even though it was a lot of smoke and mirrors. Listen, this is serious here. I don't know that we can go another week or two without a deal from the Democrats. People need money, Glenn. It's just that simple.
Joe, I'm paid ahead on my mortgages. We have some rentals, and obviously my house. I'm paid 2 to 3 months ahead, just because that I don't want to ever get caught short. It would be unthinkable not to pay my mortgage. That's just my mentality of it, and I think hopefully everybody in our listening audience is in the same way. But you're right. There is a point where you're like, yeah, why should I? And think about this. If you're in Portland or Seattle or New York City and you're a businessman, you have a small business downtown, you might consider even paying your taxes, because what are you getting for
like
it?
Chicago.
Nothing.
Great point,
yeah,
Glenn. I mean,
exactly.
just incredible. The Seattle police chief just resigned today. The Seattle City, whatever you call them, your elected officials there in the city of Seattle cut 100 police officers, took all this money away. Are they nuts? And, of course, you know what I'm saying? Let them do it. Let them do it. Because you know what? 3 or 4 years from now, they'll regret it.
They're going to regret it in 3 to 4 weeks when their city is completely taken over. There was an incident in New York yesterday where a gang of teens beat up this one girl, and the police officers were literally a car length away and did not intervene because they were completely outnumbered. And the police are starting to take flack over it for like, look, you won't let us do our job, so why should we go intervene and do something? And then,
we were going to have to physically. Yeah, we were going to have to physically put some people to the ground, and it would not look good on a cell phone. We were going to have to body slam somebody. We were going to have to put a knee in the back. It was going to have to get physical, and the cops were like, forget it, not worth it, not doing it. I don't blame them. It's gone way too far.
Me neither.
It's crazy. But when you think about these millennials, this is the second time these millennials have done the don't pay thing. Right? Second time. I mean, we just did this 12 years ago. Now it's back again. They're not paying. Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be back. Final segment coming up. 800-951-0592. I'm going to do something that we do from time to time here. I'd wait another day. We got to buy these dips, but I don't believe the wholesalers have discounted this dip enough. If tomorrow it bounces back, it won't cost you anything because they didn't move the prices enough. Let's wait a day. Let's see. Wait a day and see. I want you to buy these dips. I want you to get great value out of it. But today, at least today, prices are down. Don't get me wrong. It's not like they didn't go down at all. But, we've got gold down, $80, $85. And 20s only went down $40. $5 Liberties only went down $10. That's not enough. So I would tell you, by all means, you're more than willing to buy them, and you're going to be fine if you did. Don't get me wrong. But I'm hopeful that tomorrow will bring an even cheaper price, and we'll start buying that dip tomorrow. So I'll leave it up to you. But right now, the specials that I got weren't that special. The pricing that I got wasn't that great. In other words, the wholesalers are saying, hey, listen, we're busy as you know what. And I'm telling you right now, we are so busy in here. It's been incredible. I mean, our business is up 300%, 400% year over year. That's how busy it is in here. And, of course, the paper markets and the physical markets are not the same markets. And so they're kind of saying, hey, this is just, computers and big banks forcing a trade, and we're expecting gold to bounce right back, so they don't want to offer the discounts. So I'm telling you all, wait another day. But, Glenn, what I'm telling you, I'm really concerned. Think about it if you're 30, 35, 40. I'll be 50. Wow, man, I'll be 50 in 5 days. This is the second time now in my, and I've really, quite honestly, I only became an adult when I met my wife. I was a typical boy. I didn't even have an ounce of maturity in me till I was like 28 years old. And here I am going to be 50, and it's the second time in the 22 years that I call myself an adult that people just don't pay, Glenn.
Yeah, the last time people walked away and left the keys on the counter, didn't they?
Yeah, they called it Jingle Mail.
Yeah.
Right? This time, the only reason you're not hearing about it, this time, the only reason why Wall Street's breaking records or are near records is because the government has allowed for people not to pay. Right? Well, we're deferring this and we're deferring that, and we're going to give you this and we're going to give you that. And now all the giveaways, even though these all the giveaways are gone now. Now, we'll have to see if Congress will act, which they're going to at some point. They have to. But the numbers of people not paying, it's just a little perspective. New York City, 83% of the eateries can't pay their bills. Right? Nationally now, 7.3% of people aren't making their mortgage payments. I don't know how it all works out. I mean, how much money is it? It's a lot. A lot more money is going to be printed. Gold's got a long way to go. Patriot Radio News Hour. We'll be back tomorrow.